A lot of people have a negative connotation of whole life or infinite banking and all that stuff, myself included. I'm always like, this doesn't even make sense. Why would I want to do this?
All infinite banking concept is the same thing a bank does every day. So why would we use this stupid, overpriced, terrible vehicle that Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, and everybody else says is the worst place you can put your money? We have two alternatives for what we're talking about. You can put money in a bank account, maybe a money market to have access and liquidity, or you could put your money here and have access and liquidity. One allows you to make money twice. The other allows you to make money once.
A lot of people have a negative connotation of whole life or infinite banking and all that stuff, myself included. You know, every time I've ever been pitched it, I'm always like, this doesn't even make sense. Why would I want to do this? And before we got on show, you know, you started telling me about ways that you're doing it differently and why it actually does make sense in some situations if, you know, your guy actually giving you the policy is building it in a way that makes sense. So for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, like, let's first break down what whole life is and what this whole infinite banking thing is.
Okay, so what is whole life? It's a life insurance policy that lasts your whole life. That's the simplest thing. It is an expensive, overpriced life insurance policy that is sold by advisors because it pays a big commission. Did I accurately describe that the way that you used to view it?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's how I used to view it. Exactly. As an advisor, I made money managing assets. I sold term and invested the difference. So the day when I was out in Salt Lake City meeting with Mike about borrowing money from one of my deals, and I just asked him, I said, so Mike, how do you lend? You know, I thought I had an idea, and he says, I have my own bank. I'm like, you dirty dog, you got a bank? And I'm like, let's go. And he's like, no, I created a banking system. This guy did it. And long story short, he tells me what it is. He says, it's a whole life policy. I sat back and I'm like, man. And I felt weird because this guy's got way more money than me and incredibly successful. And I'm like, I said to him, I said, Mike, somebody told you a lie, man. Whole life doesn't work that way. You can't put money in a whole life and immediately take that money out. I've never seen one that works that way. I've never been taught that. So it just doesn't work that way. And he leans into me and he says, Chris, if it doesn't work that way, how have I been doing this over and over and over again? And I said, okay, what don't I know here? So he turned me on to the guy, and then I watched a 90-minute video, which is where everything changed. So infinite banking. Okay. A lot of people think infinite banking concept is a product. They want to say infinite banking, whole life, infinite banking, whole life. And I understand why it's that way. The pioneer, R. Nelson Nash, the late R. Nelson Nash, in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, talks about a whole life as the machine that moves money for the infinite banking concept. But infinite banking concept is a process. Think of banking. All infinite banking concept is the same thing a bank does every day. So why would we use this stupid, overpriced, terrible vehicle that Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, and everybody else says is the worst place you can put your money? It comes down to how it's built. See, I didn't know you could take a whole life, pull it apart and reconfigure it the same way. The easiest way I can explain this, Ryan, is, you know who Ken Block is?
No, I don't.
Rallycross driver, okay? One of the best in the world. He drives a Ford Focus. That's his rally car. So let's say I want a Ford Focus because I watched one of his videos. I go to the Ford dealership. I'm on the floor and I'm looking at a Ford. You're laughing. I'm looking at a Ford Focus. My wife's behind me. I'm like, honey, that's the one. That's the car I want. She looks at me and she said, crazy people will not take you seriously. Talk about money. That's the one. And then I don't get it. But then I'm home and I'm watching his video. He's going 130 miles an hour sideways around a turn in full control in none other than a Ford Focus. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between the one on the showroom floor and the one that goes 130 in full control sideways?
He's modified it.
Engineering.
Yeah.
So these whole life contracts, they can be engineered. And they have been for hundreds of years. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Walt Disneys, the Ray Krocs, the Joe Bidens, not to get into the politics side, but that is heavily used there. They've all used this for hundreds of years. But we don't know about it, and here's why. As an advisor, I sold whole life if I did because it was a big old fat commission. Same reason people sell IULs, big old fat commission. But I never knew I could actually build the contract to pay out a really, really low commission. And if I did that, my client had access to more money. That's what this is about. It's re-engineering a whole life contract with a special company, a mutually owned company that pays dividends to work for this. Because it works just like a bank account. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do. The whole life should never be used as a place to put money and just leave that money there. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, please don't call me. What we teach is that's a machine. We put the money in it and we immediately take the money out.
Right.
Everything I teach involves changing just one thing, and that's where your money goes first. Not all your money, just the money you would save. Most people say, we talked about retirement accounts. Most people would save money in a 401k or a savings account, or commonly the savings for people is, okay, I made this much and I spent this much. The rest is, well, I guess how much I save and it sits in a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Who's winning that game?
The bank.
Absolutely. Because the bank is taking the money they've convinced you to give up control of and sending it out to work for them. They lend that money out. They pay you 1 and they charge me 5 for the loan. They make a 4-point spread in between. And they didn't have to take on very much risk. They didn't really have to do anything other than know how money works. So when I saw this, I started compiling this whole idea of, I just want to be the bank. I just want to mimic what a bank does. The machine, which is the whole life, specially designed and engineered, allows me to put money in it and immediately in the next 30 days, take that money out. Maybe not all of it in the first year, but up to 90%. Take that money out and then do stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really how this works. But to go one step further, it's not the policy you should be excited about. But the policy does some things, and the reason we use a whole life, it does some things no other vehicle on earth can do. And let me just pull out some money here. I want to do this with a visual because it's just easier for me.
All right.
Everybody saves money or says they are or wants to. So when you save money, imagine you use a bank account. We talked about this earlier. Why wouldn't I just keep it in the bank? You could. The bank's going to pay you 1% or less. But the cool thing about a bank account is if you need this $100 to do a real estate deal, you have liquidity to take that money and move it. So what if all I did is I took that 100 and I just changed one thing and I just changed where that money went first. Instead of putting it in somebody else's bank that's going to make it work for them, I put it in my bank. Why would I do that? I would do it because my bank pays me up to 6%. The average policy we write is between 5.2 and 6% with dividends. So 1 versus 6 is all of a sudden better. So I'm making 6%. But now I'm worried because that money, that 100 I just put in there, I can't take out. But what if I could immediately in the first 30 days or even sooner? When my check clears, that money's available. So I go in and then I take out. Now I'm not going to cut the bill in half, but let's say you come to me and you got a deal and you want $9,000. Let's just pretend this 100's 10,000. So then I take a loan from my policy for $9,000. I give you $9,000. I started with 10. It's making 6%. I give you 9. How much is left in my policy?
Still 10, right?
Right. But most people would say 10 minus 9, you got $1,000 left because they're doing the math like a bank account.
Yeah.
I have 10 grand left in my policy because that 9 grand I just gave you wasn't my money.
A loan.
It's a loan from the insurance company. And the insurance company gave me a loan that never needed to be paid back because that 9 grand wasn't the insurance company's. It's their money, but it's money they promised to me. But to get that 9 grand, I have to die because that's the other promise the insurance company makes is I got to die to get the death benefit. Well, I don't get it. Somebody else does. So the insurance company will give me part of my death benefit up to the amount of cash value I have, which is 10 grand as a loan. But that's a swear word already. Some of the people, and I think when I told you, you're like, yeah, but it's a loan. Like there's a cost to the loan. Of course, they're paying you for 6 and the loan cost by today's numbers is 4%. So 6 minus 4 is a spread of 2. Mm-hmm. Remember I said how a bank worked? 1 and then 5. They make a 4-point spread. I just made a 2-point spread. Nothing changed. But now one cool thing. The 10 grand's still in that account. The 10 grand's still earning interest and dividends. And the 10 grand will continue to compound for the rest of my life, no matter how many times I put money in it and take money out, put money in and take it out. And that spread every year, it was 2 the first year. The next year it's more. The next year it's more. Because people they think they understand compound interest, but they don't truly understand what Albert Einstein called the 8th wonder of the world. Money that earns interest can then earn money on the interest it earned and on the interest it earned and just compound over and over and over. And it doesn't stop. And it doesn't take any work. It doesn't take anything. It just takes time.
Right. So the whole concept with this is that you're essentially trying to make this 2% spread that will eventually grow. There's not really a ton of tax benefits to doing this. There's not anything crazy, like you're still getting access to your money up to potentially 90%.
In the first year. After that, it's more.
Okay. After that, it's more. But, as that value grows, you can tap into more, obviously. The big misconception, well, I don't even say misconception because it's true, but I've every time I've been pitched whole life, whenever I look at the sheet that just shows the value of,
the illustration. Yeah.
The illustration of how much I'm going to make and the value, it always is like I'm losing money until year 7. Mm-hmm. And then year 8, I'm finally ahead. And I'm just like, why am I doing this? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So how are you getting around that?
The first thing is you said the first misconception about everything that we do. Everybody focuses on an illustration. They don't understand the concept of what we just talked about moving the money Because really, if they understood the concept, they'd never care about the numbers as much as you are. Think about it. Like, we have two alternatives for what we're talking about. You can put money in a bank account, maybe a money market, to have access and liquidity, or you could put your money here and have access and liquidity. But one allows you to make money twice. The other allows you to make money once. So if I put $100 in an account in a bank, I make money once, an interest rate. But if I take that 100 out and I give it to you and you're going to pay me 12, I stop earning the 1 and now I'm making 12. It's still a good day in the office. Here, I take the 100, I put it over here. I'm making 6, better than the bank. So we're already up on the bank. And that 6 that I earn is tax-free. So people that talk about the tax thing, the only thing you've got is like a Roth. It's tax-free on the growth. Don't play the tax game because that's not the reason we do this. But now I take this 100 and I take it out and you pay me 12 on that. Now I'm making 12 from you, but I'm making a spread over here. So which one would you prefer? Make money twice or make money once? So that's it. So let's get to your question. When you look at the illustration and you're looking at it, you're saying, okay, I put X amount in every year and it takes me 6 or 7 years to get back what I put in. True statement. Okay. But that's because you're looking at it wrong. Now, the policies we design don't take 7 years. I'm going to be frank about that. That policy probably might have been an infinite banking policy, but I think they were making a little bit more money than I make on them because I know how to strip my commissions down and put the lowest death benefits so that you have the highest amount. But let's just pretend that's what they all were, is a 7-year break even from a cumulative return. A cumulative return would be the right return for a 401k where you put money in and you never take it out.
Mm-hmm.
But are we putting money in and just leaving it sit in the policy? No. Absolutely not. And if that's what somebody wants, is just a place to put their money and leave it, we're not going to be a good fit. We're putting money in and immediately finding an opportunity to move that money out. And that opportunity could be your car. Like, you have a nice car. I like nice cars too. Every car I buy, okay, I take the money from my policy. So I save up enough to pay cash, take the money, the loan from the policy, and I buy the car. And I figure out what the car payment's going to be. So the truck that I just got, it's $2,500 a month payment. I take $2,500 a month that I would have paid a finance company. And instead of paying the bank or the finance company, I write a check every month or a bill pay to my bank, which is the policy. So I took $120,000 out of it, bought the vehicle. I take the $2,500 I would have paid, which I found out by asking them, how much would this car cost if I finance it? $2,500, 6-year loan at whatever, 6% interest. Take that $2,500, instead of giving it to them or putting it in a bank account, I just put it back in my policy, paying the loan down, making interest the entire time on the $120,000. And now I'm recapturing the interest I would have gave away. Now, just with cars, if I do just that, here's what happens. You get all the money back for every single car you ever buy, drive, and own, and you never have to sell them. So that car out there, imagine if in 5 or 6 years, you could get all the money back, but the car didn't have to get sold to get it because you're the bank. So that's one way. Credit cards is another way we use this. We show people how to wipe out debt. If you're giving 20% to Visa, I put money in this bank, take a loan, and I pay Visa off. If I was paying Visa $100 a month at 20%, that's money that was leaving my family. I take the 100 and I put it back in my policy. It's the same dollars. My family didn't have to work harder or work longer. It's the same dollars. So back to the cumulative return. If I'm putting money in and taking money out, putting money in and taking money out to pay loans or credit cards off, to buy cars, to buy real estate, lend it out, cumulative return doesn't matter. Cash on cash return matters. Every dollar I put in, how much did that money make this year? So if I put $100,000 in the policy, how much was the return this year? I put another 100 in next year. What's the return next year? In real estate, the main thing we use is cash on cash return. So because I'm putting it in and taking out, the only thing that matters is how much did that money that I put in this year make me? So that's when we use cash on cash return, your break even, we call it the efficiency zone, is 2, at the worst case, 3 years.
Let's pause real quick. We just launched something new that I'm really excited about, which is our text hotline. It is now easier than ever to get in touch with myself and my team. If you've ever been thinking about working with us in any way, whether it's through real estate investing, learning how to create content, or scaling your business, we want to help you out. And it's super simple. All you got to do is just text 725-444-5244. If you text that number, my team is going to get in touch with you right away. And I, in fact, might be responding to some of those texts as we get the system just built out and rolling. We can answer any of your questions for getting you help, telling you about our different programs, different events we've got coming up, different resources that we have that can help you. It's going to be epic. So just text us at 725-444-5244 and somebody will respond to you and get you help right now.
But what would it be like if you didn't do anything, it's going to still be
You would never call me. So it would be the 7 years or whatever, 6 or 7 years. Even if it's the best design, it's probably 5 years.
Right.
On a cumulative return.
Right. And so the only difference is obviously you're training them how to utilize it to get that return higher. And also too, you're stripping your commissions down.
The way I'm not so much stripping it, the way I'm designing it, I'm putting the lowest death benefit on the plan, which means we get paid off of the death benefit. So I put the lowest death benefit by IRS rules and I put the most amount of money in, my commission's naturally going to be lower. I'll give you numbers like a $10,000 premium into a regular whole life insurance policy would pay an advisor on minimum $5,500.
$5,500 for $10,000.
That's a good day in the office, right?
Yeah.
Now you put 10 grand in a policy I design. My commission's $387.
So why would a guy like you do that?
Volume, scale. I understand volume and I'm a master at picking up nickels and pennies. That's it. I understand that if I give, I get.
Right.
You've heard this a million times. Zig Ziglar, if you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want.
Right.
But I got to help a lot of people. To date, that's over 5,000. A couple of years, it'll be 10. So do that little math on 5,000 people. Yeah. It's a good living.
The goal is get as many people through Money Multiplier, charge as low as possible, get them in the door. And then, obviously they're going to do well. And, eventually they'll buy some other stuff from you down the road. Same
Maybe,
concept
but I'm not after everybody either. Right. I want people that understand the concept and are willing to learn the concept and apply the concept. Because if not, I don't want to work with them because it's just a problem client then. Right. And they put money in the policy and they're like, hey, how come I'm not making the money like your video showed? What would you do? Did you move the money? Did you do lending? Did you buy a car? No, it's just in the policy. Oh, man. Okay, let's go back to the first beginning. Remember, this is just a machine that we move our money through. And here's the other thing too. Let's talk about that. Let's just say it was 7 years. Okay, it's not in the plans I designed, but let's just say it was. Would you give up access to 100% of your money for a period of 7 years so that then year 8 and for the rest of your life, which I don't know, how many years do you think that is? You got 70 years left after 8 years?
We'll see.
60, 70 years?
Yeah.
For 60 or 70 years that every dollar you put money into that machine, it printed and gave you back more money than you put in. Every year, and every year you got to raise and you didn't have to work any harder. It's like a business. Most businesses lose money the first 5 years, right? It's a statistic, 5 years. You're creating a bank. Your bank might not make money right out of the hole. It will because you'll move it, but it might not as a standalone make money. But we always build businesses and put energy and effort into those businesses for 5 years, even if we don't make anything or barely get by because we know the fruits of our labor will pay off someday. In these plans, in the worst plan, the 7-year plan that you said, even that plan, if you put money in, if I put $1 in that year 7, I'd probably get $1.50 back for every dollar I put in. In the 10th year, if I put $1 in, I'm probably getting $2 back for every dollar I put in. It's just compound interest. This is just mathematics. It's not my opinion, not speculation. It's mathematics.
Right.
So would you give up 7 years of gain to then for the rest of your life have a gain in a return on your money that you didn't have to work any harder for or do anything to get? That's the question. So when you ask, do I want the most amount of people? I want people that understand that. But then I'm going to shorten that curve. And are you willing to give up access to all of your money for 3 years so that the rest of your life, every dollar you put in, you get more back than what you put in?
So I think a question a lot of people would be wondering is, okay, that's great. Basically, we're talking about making an extra 2% as long as...
That's only the first year.
Right. As long as I, go use my money effectively. What do you think's a way that, I guess you are training people this, but how would you say people should invest their money? What's a lot of ways people are doing it?
I just look at what the wealthy do and what insurance companies do and what do the banks do? Lend money. So how I've made money is first I took back all the money I was giving away. I looked at my balance sheet or my budget and I said, who's getting money from me every month? Car payments, credit card companies, lines of credit. And I started the process of going through all the places I was losing money and I took it all back. I paid those loans off and I just kept making monthly payments, but I made them to my bank. After that, buying cars. We always buy cars. We're always going to. We need them. I started financing my own cars, copy machines in my office. This just happened. The guy came in to redo our lease on our copy machine and he said, it's going to be $171 a month. I said, how much is the copy machine? He said, $8,900. I ran the math. I said, if I just take $8,900 out of my policy and I pay the $171 away, $171 a month I would give away to him back to my policy, I end up making, I think, about $4,000 over a 6-year time frame on that copy machine. Yeah, I mean, it's endless what you can do. But my preferred choice is real estate. I come from a real estate background. Greg, that thing sank in my mind. The ultimate in real estate is being the bank. Lenders always made all the money. Whoever I borrowed money from for my flips always seemed to make as much or more than I did, even on the best flips. So I'm just like, okay, well, if that's the case, why don't I just lend money on real estate? So I started lending money on real estate. And that was several years ago. We made a lot of money in flipping, kind of like similar story. And then from there I had money. And I'm like, well, what do I do with all this? I don't want to buy more real estate because I got burned out on it. I don't want more real estate. So how do I make this money work? I started lending it out. Problem I ran into was people would bring me deals on a yellow piece of paper with an address and say, hey, can you lend me $200,000 on this? I'm like, dude, you never been to a bank? Like, is the bank just give you money when you bring them a paper? No. So I started the process 2 years ago of teaching people how to be good borrowers. I wrote a book, Private Money Guide, showing people this is how you're a good borrower and this is how you're a good lender and this is how you protect yourself. So I built this whole infrastructure and this whole process on the proper way to lend and the proper way a borrower should build a deal. We called it the perfect loan proposal. So then I started lending to good borrowers because I was developing good borrowers through education. And all of a sudden my friends that had money would be like, hey man, can I lend on a deal or two with you? Sure. So we'd lend on a deal or two, and then 3 or 4. And then I'm like, well, this is a pain in the ass. So then I had to create a platform to kind of track it all. And I used Slack in the beginning. I would invite them all in, and then they would just lend on deals. Mm-hmm. I got this idea one night. I remembered back to when I was a pro snowboarder. And when I was a pro snowboarder, I was always single. I was smart. So when I'd travel to an event in Colorado or Utah or Big Bear, I wanted a companion. I wanted to hang out with a girl when I was there. So dating sites became really important. I used eHarmony. Profiles on one side, my profile here, I would scroll through, find people in Colorado or wherever I was going to be, and I would connect the dots, and it was pretty successful. Not always, but I'd have somebody to hang out with that at that event. But then I thought, why doesn't that exist for money? Why isn't there a dating site for money? Because there's only two types of people out there, Ryan. There's people that have money that want to make more money, and there's people that need money to make money. Mm-hmm. Both me and you both sit on both sides of that fence. Right. But everybody, for the most part, sits on one side. I just solved the problem. First, I solved it for myself, then for a few friends. Now, in October, I'm launching to the US. I'm going to solve it for millions of people.
I love it. So tell me about this. I'm a big guy on creating businesses that solve problems, because that's basically every business I've ever started, was people constantly coming to me with a problem. I'm like, I guess I'll just do it. Mm-hmm. And you were telling me about this private money club. And the more if you guys can't tell listening, I'm always picking apart ideas and like, where's the catch? How would this fail? What's wrong with it? And if I can't find anything that like is a big enough problem, I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. Okay. And, I think what you are designing with Private Money Club is really cool. So why don't you tell people about that?
Yeah. So I took the same model as a dating site, 2 profiles, a lender's profile. They put all the specifics in based on a criteria that we give them, kind of like building a Facebook or an Instagram profile. And then the borrowers do the same thing, but the borrowers then have an additional level of training that's basically brought them in, once they're a member, that brings them into it to teach them how to design their deal. Here's the things you would need. Think of Zillow. Every Zillow deal you look at is identical. They all look the same info. So if somebody wanted to look at a deal, they know where to find it on Zillow. Well, I've just created that template. And then I said, if you're going to be a borrower, well, lenders are going to want to know some things about you. Like, let's see what you look like, behind the curtain. How much money do you got? What's your income look like? Where are your statements? How much money you got in the bank? So we ask for personal financial statements and tax returns and all this, but we've created a template for all this. So now once they create all that, they post their deal on the site. Now, so the new app that's coming out for us is just like Tinder. Swipe left, swipe right. Mm-hmm. So let's play 2 sides. You're a borrower and you need money for your deal. You grab the app, you select lenders, and you start swiping left through all the lenders. You read the profiles. This guy's got $200,000, looking for 10 to 15%. Boom, you're swiping. When you find one you like, you swipe right. And then that brings you into a chat inside the software. The chat then walks you through a comprehensive process of very much like that one I built earlier. And it just solves the problem. Same thing. If you're a lender and you want a deal, you swipe left. You swipe right, it notifies the borrower, and then the borrower sends you the deal. Boom, now you're engaged in a conversation. Listen, not all deals are going to work, but I don't get in the middle of the deals. This is the thing that was, obviously I knew that was where the money was. The money was, let me try to find a point or two I can make on every deal. I had an SEC attorney that I hired and I said, can we figure this out? He said, don't you even ask. He said, it's never going to work. It's going to get shut down. So I said, okay, well, all right, it's just going to be a membership site. So we created, I just draw a circle, lenders and borrowers, and in the middle is the education and the process. And we just charge a membership fee for it of $1,000 a year.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Like that business model is so smart with, hey, $1,000, you get to interact with as many, if you're a guy looking for money, you got that. If you're a guy who's got a bunch of money, you can meet other people. It's kind of weird, the dating for lenders and borrowers, but it definitely works.
It just gets your mind working. Like
it's the dopamine of, man, am I going to find a good private lender today? It's going to be interesting. Yeah. Okay, man, am I going to find a new investment opportunity?
It's fun. It's almost like gamification.
Fun. It is gamification, just to kind of in a weird way, since it's like a love app.
Money is a game. It's a tool.
Yeah.
So it's just teaching you how to use that tool better for two different types of people.
Yeah. So when is it going to launch?
October 14th. It's already open, but it's in beta.
Okay.
So October 14th, we've got, in my life, okay, this will be the single biggest business thing I ever do.
Right.
I love Steve Jobs, and I've studied the launch of the Mac and the launch of the iPhone. So I am doing a launch just like that. I've spent a stupid amount of money, hundreds of thousands, to prepare for this launch on October 14th in Sundance Resort out in Utah. So we're doing it right there. We rented out like Robert Redford's best lodge. We've paid a company to build stages and the craziest lighting stuff, because I watched Elon's stupid Cybertruck. I'm like, that was cool. That smoke thing was cool. That
Even though it didn't work, it was cool.
We know not to throw something at the window, so we're not going to do that. And then like we're going to basically do that launch there, and we're going to launch the US for the very first time. I've never advertised it. We have just under 200 members right now that have run about 20 million of deal flow through in beta 1 and 2. So now we're going to launch with a brand new site that I've spent, all done and said, I'm up about 400,000 in development and engineering, and it's been a long road. But dude, it is so freaking good and so cool, and I can't wait to bring it to the world.
Yeah.
It's my passion.
Is it going to be on iPhone and Android?
Everything. I hired a developer that probably charged me way too much, but they had the vision like I did. I didn't want a developer that took orders. I wanted a developer that was like, this is the coolest freaking thing I've ever heard of since.
Yeah, I'm passionate about it. Let's go. Like, let's get this thing made.
So it's just about done. And October 14th, the new version launches. It'll be available for the entire United States. People can check it out now. They just go to privatemoneyclub.com. You could get in on beta and you could put your deals up. There's probably 40 deals on there right now and about 120 lenders.
So is it only on like desktop, or does the app work?
Well, the app is just it's like any website.
Yeah.
The app retrofits but it's clunky, man. I'm not going to lie. If you're going to try to do this on your phone, like as it is today, it's clunky. You won't like it.
Well, the real thing will be much better.
Yeah.
No, that's super dope. I'm definitely going to mess around with it, dude, because like I think that's amazing. And I think it's a good spot for us to post our deals and syndications and get some of these guys. People don't have to be accredited either, right? Anybody can just sign up.
No. And if you need accredited, we're going to have a separate thing at the very beginning when you enter that room in the middle, like the lender and the borrower, or if it needs to be accredited, you're going to be able to mark it like must be accredited. And then they're going to have to prove that they're accredited, sign a disclaimer. So I've got a really good SEC attorney. So like if you post a syndication deal and you need accredited, when you get together with like somebody that's going to lend on it, they're going to have to basically do the accreditation stuff right there on the site.
Right.
And then that would report back to you.
Right. No, I love that, dude. So that's where majority of your focus is going to be, just launching that.
So like, this is where I get to bridge like the world that I knew in Wall Street. Cause obviously I was, Series 7, everything. I understood SEC very well. Actually, sometimes, didn't like them, but FINRA and SEC. So I bridged that world to now the real estate world in my passion project that solved my problem, because I make a ton of money lending money now. So if it worked for me, how many people's lives can it change? And what started out as a small little thing, I get these testimonials of people that I've changed their life, and I didn't know really why, but they didn't know how to make money and turn an income on. They had money, they didn't know how to make an income from it.
Right.
I just connected the dots and said, hey, here's how you earn income just like a bank.
Yeah.
And then borrowers, they couldn't get funding because they didn't want to go hard money, or hard money lenders just ran them through the same rigmarole. And there's no institutional lenders on this platform. None. It's mom, pa's, brothers, sisters, coworkers. No institution. We do filter for that.
Awesome.
And so we're helping the person that needs to be helped instead of helping
the big
Wall
boys.
Street and the big boys.
Yeah, they don't need any help.
Nope.
They're good. Well, dude, that's super dope. I'm super excited for that. Once again, that's privatemoneyclub.com, right? So I think you guys should definitely check that out. I will say, on the infinite banking side, I've definitely been enlightened on how it can, work the right way. For me, I was just always hung up on the 7-year deal and like the fat commissions up front. I'm just like, man, this doesn't make sense. But with the way you're talking about structuring it, I can definitely see it making way more sense.
We've done Ryan on that too. I don't mean to go back to that, but really quick on YouTube, and you're big on YouTube too. I've created case studies real investors, real estate investors using this, showing real numbers and how they're doing it. It's the best way to learn. Like watch actual people using it and see how it works. And that's what we've done a really good job of in our education, is not just saying, hey, here's this concept, here's this illustration. No, like let's find out how Devin used it. Let's find out how Tess used it. Like, let's see how other people are using it. And we just keep creating case studies.
Yes. And what's your YouTube channel called?
The Chris Naugle. So you just @the Chris Naugle.
Wealth Builders, I'm so excited to announce the launch of Wealthy University. This is literally the best deal we've ever created. Imagine if you got calls with me and my team every single week where you can ask Q&A and get up-to-date information on what's working in my business and for other experts in the world. On top of that, what if you got access to all of our courses? And what if you got access to exclusive softwares like our CRMs in our community to go and do deals and make relationships? Well, if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, it's only $97 a month. I'm not kidding you. If you've joined any of our other programs, you know they're a lot more expensive than that. So to get access to our community for only $97 a month is absolutely insane, and it's so easy to sign up. All you got to do is go to wealthyuniversity.com, and you could sign up today and get instant access to those calls, exclusive content like our WealthCon recordings or our workshop recordings, and so many other things in the community. So go check out Wealthy University today and get signed up.
What do people know you as? Because when you first came in, I'm like, you're the infinite banking guy, right? And you're like, yeah, but there's a lot more than that.
It depends. I mean, some people know me as the pro snowboarder. Other people know me as the HGTV guy. Other people know me as the infinite banking person. Some people just say, you're the money guy.
You're the money guy. Dude, I didn't know you're a pro snowboarder. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, 19 years old. Well, it went back before that, but 19, I went pro and did a pro career for a long time. Got taken out when I was 34 years old out at Mammoth, overshot a pretty big table, and that was it. But it was honestly one of the most magical periods of time, and it fed my business too. So back then I owned retail stores, skateboard, snowboard shops that I started when I was 17. And so I was running the shops, doing the snowboarding, perfect life.
Where did you grow up at?
Buffalo, New York.
So
not the Mecca for snowboarding.
Yeah, but it's cold.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I obviously, I started snowboarding a few years ago, once I retired from baseball, because I didn't want to ever get injured, and so I think in 2017, I retired from pro baseball, and it's like, I'm snowboarding. And I also bought a cabin in Big Bear. And so I just started snowboarding, and dude, it's so much fun.
Oh, it's a freedom. I mean, I try to explain to people like what I feel when I'm up on the hill, but I'm a kid again. I'm 45 now, but when I'm on a board, I don't feel 45. I can be 19 that day, depending on what I'm feeling. It's a magical place.
So will you still like just go grind rails and do some big jumps and stuff?
Yeah, just look at my feed. You'll see last winter, we're just blasting tables and rails. Like I said, I don't know any different.
Right.
A couple of years ago, I started competing again, and then I had 2 bad injuries that kind of made me realize, okay, maybe we can just go have fun with this.
Right. Is snowboarding kind of like the race car drivers and jockeys and stuff, where you got to be smaller because you're a smaller guy?
Yeah. I don't think it hurts you because obviously, it's less distance to hit the ground, and we hit the ground a lot, and I rode with a lot of tall guys. They always had knee problems.
Yeah.
I mean, I've blown both my knees out, but my knees recovered. The tall guys just never seem to recuperate from it.
No, dude, I would think snowboarding as a tall guy would be tough because like Shaun White, he doesn't seem like a very big guy.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No. Most of the guys that I snowboarded with were relatively short, let's say 6 foot and shorter, but 6 was like,
that guy's tall for snowboarding.
That guy's super tall. Like, oh man, he's lanky. But most of us were just little guys. So it was perfect.
It's funny because it's like the opposite of other sports. I'm 5'10", and I was always the smallest guy on my baseball team. These pitchers are all 6'5" and huge, and but then I see these other sports where it's actually you have an advantage being smaller.
5'4" and rocking it strong.
Yeah, that's funny, man. I got one question about snowboarding. So I always get so scared when I go straight. Like I always have to be carving to kind of slow down. Like how do I get over that?
You could detune your edges. It would take that edge away. Because if you're riding like a factory tuned board, then you're on a hard pack surface.
Yep.
Riding flat is scary because you get that feel of those edges.
I'm going to friggin'
correct.
Yeah.
So if you just take and you put the board flat and you just take a file, and I just put my fingers under it and you detune it, you can get, a bevel on that edge, which will make the board just ride it'll kind of be looser,
okay.
But don't expect it to when you nail the edge to hold on rock solid ice.
Got it.
But that's like all the rails that we rode. A lot of people don't realize this, all the riders, we detune our edges a lot. Sometimes we just take part of the edge on the effective part right off so that when you're sliding the rail, your edge isn't in contact with metal. Because metal on metal equals a broken hip. I can tell you all about that. So you detune, you make the board work for what you're doing. And we never had just one board either.
Okay, that makes sense.
So try that.
Yeah, I'll try that out because like Big Bear, I'm sure you've snowboarded in Big Bear, right?
Love Big Bear.
Yeah. It's
that
like
beautiful lake down at the bottom.
So nice. But the snow is always man-made and it's not super fluffy. And so I'm like, dude, I'm going to like fall and this is going to hurt.
Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe, different boards can help that too. Like there's the reverse camber or the hybrid cambers, not getting technical, but that helps with that like looseness.
Right. So, I mean, dude, how do you go from pro snowboarder to being the money guy?
Yeah, it's interesting. So living the life all the way up to the 2000s, just doing snowboarding, running my shops. I had 3 locations. And I remember the day I just gotten back from California because I was at a trade show and I'm driving to my store, my brand new store. And on the radio, I hear of this plane hitting a tower. And I'm like, oh my gosh, some poor guy just hit the tower. And then later we learned that was 9/11. And then following 9/11 was the recession, the dot-com crash. Right. Well, I'd never seen a recession in my life. I didn't even know what that meant. So when it happened, my business started going down and I was highly leveraged. So I had to make money. I applied at Little Caesars to deliver pizzas. They weren't hiring. So I put my resume out and the only fools that got a hold of that punk snowboard kid, me, was Wall Street firms. So that's how I got into money. It's kind of out of necessity. I didn't plan on being in Wall Street. I didn't even want to be. Never put a suit on in my life. And even when I went and got the job, I remember like the idea of wearing a suit was so foreign to me.
As a snowboarder, for sure.
Yeah, I had to go to Volcom, which is a company I sold in my store, and they sold suits. I ordered a white or a black, a navy, and a gray one, the only 3 colors I could wear, and I had them send me suits so that when I was in the office, at least I had a Volcom suit on, feeling more like myself. It was very difficult, but that's how I entered it. And it was supposed to be a temporary thing, but it ended up being something I fell in love with. I made more money that first year as an advisor than I had ever as a pro snowboarder, and it just kind of steamrolled from there.
Okay. So you do Wall Street, you learn, the behind the scenes of money. What kind of happens from there?
So I was still just doing the snowboarding, still had my shop. So everything was going great. I was killing it. And in 2008, my lease came due. Well, 2007 into 2008, my lease came due at one of my main stores. 2 buildings down was a dilapidated paint store. And I looked at it and I said, I can develop that into a 3-unit strip mall and I can move my store in and then I can rent the other 2 and have somebody else pay my mortgage instead of me paying rent. Well, we all know 2008 was the Great Recession. And when I did that, it was just bad timing. I borrowed $370,000 from some bad guys that wouldn't have just taken the property back. And that's where everything kind of changed.
Right.
So I almost lost it all, almost went bankrupt. If it wasn't for my girlfriend paying my mortgage, my utilities, and letting me move friends into my house, I don't think I would have made it through that. So that was like a tipping point for me where things got weird because I was making a ton of money in Wall Street. I was doing well. I was like number 3 in the office. But I started to, after that point, I had kind of taken a step back. I almost went bankrupt. So I looked at who wasn't hurt by 2008. And I had some clients that were real estate investors. They barely invested any money with me, which you clearly know why. Real estate's more lucrative than the traditional financial stuff that I was doing. So I started like picking up on maybe I should be in real estate. I'd flipped 2 houses up to this point, but just really terrible job at doing it. So in 2009, I really dove in and I started buying apartment buildings. And I did that from 9 to 14 and I got up to 36 units. But I was not educated. I didn't have mentors. Matter of fact, the thought of paying somebody to teach me how to do this was such a foreign thing. I was like, why would anyone do that? So I did it. And in 14, I ended up losing it all. I had to sell every single one of those properties.
Why do you think it failed? You just weren't managing them right?
Tell you exactly why. No, management was fine. I was borrowing money in my personal name because in my personal name, the mortgage was less interest than it would have been in my company's name.
Right.
And I didn't know that there was like a limit on that. I didn't understand debt to income ratios or how banks worked. So when I brought the 37th door to this bank, the bank was First Niagara, they said, you don't meet our criteria. We can't approve you for this loan. No big deal. I just said, okay, I won't do that one. But then they came back and they said, hey, listen, because your debt to income ratio is out of whack, we have to freeze your line of credit. I had 2. So one got frozen. Then they froze the next one. They took my ability to do the business. I had a bunch of unfinished units that I couldn't get done. I was taking every penny from Wall Street and everything else I was doing, plowing it into real estate. You just hit that point where you're too leveraged. And I think I just had to start just selling them off.
Wow.
It sucked. It was bad. I mean, it went quick too. I sold this one and that one and this one. And then it just spiraled out of control. A lot of things happened. One of the mortgages got called, and I didn't know that bank was selling to a large commercial bank. So they were thinning their balance sheet out, but I didn't have a clue. I just thought, wow, they just hate me.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And I ended up selling every property. I sold our dream house that me and Larissa, who is now my fiance, bought, 171 Radcliffe. I'll never forget that thing. And
Wow.
I even remember like sitting in that bedroom. Larissa was leaving me. And I remember watching the guy from Craigslist come in to take my bedroom set out because I had to sell everything.
It's crazy.
It was a tough time.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of, man, that was probably 14. That's around the time I started buying things on Craigslist, ironically, and flipping couches and stuff. So I might have been the guy, buying
It would
your
have been
bed.
a long trip to get the bedroom
Yeah.
set.
But no, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen when I was doing that, like all the people moving in and out and for various reasons. And but obviously you're at where you're at today. And I know as somebody who's been through a lot of different difficult periods financially and business and everything else, that it's usually those failures that lead to the biggest successes.
100%.
So
when you're in that,
yeah.
when you're in that mist, it
it
doesn't
sucks.
feel like that.
No.
It just feels like I suck. I'm a failure. I can do nothing right.
Mhm.
But everything you learn when you're in that mode is the most important thing to catapult you to the next level.
If you haven't heard, WealthCon is coming back to Las Vegas April 18th to the 20th, and I believe it's going to be our biggest one yet. We're going to try and fill the Caesars Palace with 2,000 top-level real estate investors and entrepreneurs. I've got amazing speakers like Neil Patel, Tim Grover, Dan Martell, Pace Morby, and many others coming, and it's going to be great. So if you want to get tickets today, we got some special deals going on. All you got to do is text me at 725-444-5244. We'll get you info on what kind of tickets we got, all the way from general admission to our diamond level tickets, where you're able to network with the speakers, go backstage, ask them questions, and then have a dinner with all of us in a really intimate setting. It's going to be great. So if you want to get tickets, text me at 725-444-5244.
Now we know this now, but back then, I had failed a few times, but I hadn't stopped the blame game. Every time I failed, I blamed everybody else.
Mhm.
Blame this person, blame that business partner, blame the markets.
Mhm.
Never took responsibility for the actions that actually landed me in that circumstance. But at that point, I started to, and the next phase was kind of a very interesting self-discovery and self-development phase.
Yeah. So what happened?
I got a postcard. I remember I sold that house. I'm living in one of the apartment buildings, the only one I had left because I had a partner that didn't want to sell it. And I'm living there. Larissa had moved back in, and a postcard comes in the mail. Come learn how to flip houses. It was Doug Hopkins' postcard.
Oh, my boy. There we go.
Yeah. So, and I flipped it over, and on the back, I didn't want to go learn how to flip houses. I'd already had a bad experience. And on the back, it said, come to this seminar and we will give you a free iPod shuffle. They really weren't giving away iPod shuffles, Chinese ones, but Doug. So that was the ploy. So I got me there because I had nothing to lose, but everything to gain, because an iPod shuffle at that point was important. I went to this 3-day event, and this is where we get into the people that So up on stage, 2 guys got up there, Mike and Greg. And we're talking Greg Hurling.
Yep.
Mike, I'll leave his last name out. But they got up there, and instead of talking about real estate directly like everybody else, they talked about money. And I remember listening because I was the money guy and I was in the back seat, and I'm thinking, all right, what are these guys going to teach me about money that I don't know? But as soon as Greg opened his mouth, everything he talked about was completely foreign to me. As an advisor of, at that time, let's call it 13, 14 years, he was talking about things I'd never heard mentioned, never been trained on, never even knew existed. And at the end of him and Mike talking, I remember that he said the ultimate in real estate is being the bank.
Mm.
Dude, they did the call to action. I ran to the back of the room as quick as I could to spend that $2,900 to go to the next event, which was the summit. And that's where it all began. And then that led to a $27,000 swipe and $85,000 in total. So I went from a guy that would never pay for coaching, thought it was the stupidest thing in the world. Why would anyone pay to learn? You can learn this for free in books. To the guy that just went in $85,000 to be mentored, to be coached. Now, that whole process wasn't a great, perfect process because the company, but everything you get out of a coaching program, good, bad, or indifferent, is your application of knowledge. And I'll tell you, one thing me and my wife did is apply to every darn thing we learned, because I didn't have $27,000. They actually, you remember this, they would teach you how to increase the limit on your card. My card had $5,000. That was the limit. And they got me to somehow get them to give me $25,000. And then I swiped it for, 25. And then I had to come up with $2,000 out of pocket. was everything I had.
Right.
And I didn't know how I was going to pay it back. I freaked. So after that, it wasn't just like, oh, 27 grand. It was like, we have to pay that back in 6 months. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Right.
So we just, man, we hit it hard.
Right.
Hit it hard.
So you went on the real estate trail, and you end up flipping houses?
We were just flipping. Cause remember, I just lost everything.
You're like, I don't like apartments anymore.
I was scarred from it. So I just was like, flip, quick money. Let's do this. And, I was watching the TV shows, the first one I ever saw was Doug's show. Yep. And I was just watching those, and that's what got me excited. But at a summit, me and Larissa were in the front row because now we were students, right? Now we're like, teach me. We always sat in the front. Tarek and Christina get on the stage. And I remember I was starstruck partly. And the other part was I come from the snowboard world where we were always filming for video parts. I looked over to Larissa and I said, Larissa, if I'm ever going to be on that stage, or I think I said, if we're ever going to be on that stage, we got to have a show. So right then and there, I created this idea for a show. It was going to be Flip or Flop meets Jackass. And I came home, the guy that worked in my shops, his name was Kyle. He did a video production. I said, I'm going to hire you. We had a beer and we put it all together. He was going to make the sizzle reels and the pilot. And we began. The property was 665 Hopkins Road that we made that first sizzle on. I thought it was a masterpiece. My skateboard team from the shops came in and they demoed things. They made ramps and they were skating on the ramps in the demoed house. And then we flipped it at the end. And I think we made like 45 grand on that one. So that was like the first pilot, or not pilot, but like sizzle reel. HGTV hated it. A&E said this is way outside of our scope. And we were with a producer who loved the idea out of Toronto. But then after that, nothing panned out. So we ended up getting another producer that was, brought to us by Mike, who had a show on A&E. And then they said, here's the box of what HGTV wants. We have to fit in this box. So just show me the way. So all that fun skateboards, stuff went out the window, and we made a show that was edgy, but in their box. And we made it all the way. We piloted, we launched, we were number 2 out of Greenlight. Dude, I burned the boats. I literally went so deep into this. We were flipping 20 houses a month. It was insanity. And I was so tuned out of Wall Street at this point. I knew I was on my way to the exit, but it was just easy money because I had a big book. And I remember when we got greenlit for the show, I had to get an OBA, which is an outside business activity. And I went into my compliance officer. I said, hey, we got our show, thinking she'd be excited. And she says, oh, okay, congratulations. I said, I need to get an OBA for this HGTV show. She just looked at me and she said, that's not going to happen. You got to decide, Chris, if you're going to be a financial advisor or a TV show star.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to be a star.
See ya. Hey, Mike, who's the guy next to me? You want to buy my practice? We worked a deal out, which worked out, and he still pays me checks today. And boom, dude, boats burned.
Nice.
Until that night.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you do the show. What happens from there?
So doing the show, trying to figure out, like, I didn't really have a plan B, so to say. I had the show. It was going to work. And one night, like after our show aired, and I remember pivotal moment, like Tarek and Christina were airing, we were right after them. And I remember our ratings came out, they were solid. So I'm like, we got the show. Just in your mind, you just believe you're going to get it. Driving home one night from a flip, phone rings, it's our producer. I pick it up so excited, but then the voice on the other end wasn't excited like I was. And he's like, hey, I got some bad news. They're not moving you on to series. Discovery bought HGTV. Our whole team that was rooting for us now got displaced, and Discovery wasn't putting any new shows. Ryan, I got to tell you, and I say this I don't say it very often, but that was that moment where literally I contemplated just taking the wheel and just jerking it to the right. See what happened, because I just didn't know how I was going to tell my wife. But I ended up going home, told my wife, bawling, just not knowing what's next, and my phone rings. I pick it up, and it's Greg Hurling. I'm like, hey, Greg, what's going on? He's like, oh, I'm so happy for the things we're doing. This is when we were doing our funds. So happy for the things we're doing. I'm really excited. Greg's usually a pretty upbeat kind of guy. And I'm like, who told you? Thinking somebody tipped him off. Somebody told him, because he had a lot riding on the show as well. And he's like, told me what? I'm like, you're not just calling me out of the blue to tell me how excited somebody told you you're trying to cheer me up. He says, no, I'm just excited for what we're doing. Like a lot of big things coming. I'm just pumped. I said, I didn't get to show. So in my mind, I was so down that I thought, just because I didn't get the show, now all these people that I thought were with me were going to just run and just be like, has been. But that wasn't the case. He's a partner today, or a dear friend of mine. And
I love getting into how people got to where they are today. I think it's super important for people listening who, you know, obviously are going through at what point of your story, you know? And I can tell you, like, those are the things that really help people get through those positions and just really see what's next. And so I've shared a lot of my stories of, you know, things we went through to finally get to where we're at today. And, you know, I go through things today, you know, that are not easy, that I know that, hey, you know what, this is temporary. I'm going to get out of this. It's going to lead to something better and it's going to be great. So props to you for sharing that. And I appreciate you coming out to Vegas on the show. I know it was a long trip, man, but I had a lot of fun.
Me too, man. It was a real honor and a privilege.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So guys, if you like this, make sure you subscribe, go catch up with Chris, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Everyone thinks 401k is a great retirement vehicle. It's just not true. There's no guarantee that that money that's accumulating in the stock is going to go up. Like I just said, it could go down.
Yeah.
In a policy, it's guaranteed to do one thing and one thing only, go up.
So what am I missing?